Thank you for coming to tonight's screening of My Friends, the Comedians. Please ensure that you have your cell phone silenced. Enjoy the show.
Hello, fellow joke enthusiasts, comedy connoisseurs, and champions of chuckle. Welcome back to the show. If you're new here, my name is Jacob Marscola, and this is My Friends, the Comedians, a podcast where I sit down with a friend and discuss the mysterious, delirious, and unserious realm of comedy. Sitting across from me is a friend of mine who just so happens to be a comedian. He is another alumni of Ridiculum, a former vice president of the club, taught me a lot of what I know about improv comedy and stand-up, very collaborative comedian, and I'm so excited to have him on. This is Frank Simutis III.
Hello. Thank you for having. That's a very lofty introduction. Thanks for having me.
Of course,
I'm excited to be here.
For these alumni, I gotta give y'all what's deserved, because I don't know if I would be making a podcast about talking to comedians if it weren't for people that came before me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're the content I need, and that's really what I've been talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
You're my content factory, and that this doesn't exist if I don't have more friends.
Gotcha. Okay.
Quote unquote friends.
Yeah.
What we in the comedy business call friends.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Opportunities for more content. And
opportunities
and
to
growth.
talk more, yeah. And I'll bring you back on, and you're required, contractually obligated.
Oh, that's what I signed.
Yeah, that's what that was.
No.
Why
Okay.
would I want your signature? I've met you before.
Yeah.
You
okay.
thought it was a signature.
Wow, I should have thought about that.
You really
harder.
should have thought about it.
Okay.
I mean, don't worry. I mean, I won't pay you, so you're not like monetarily obligated. Just simply obligated in general.
Gotcha.
But it's exciting to have you on. Thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you. It is exciting to be here.
Yeah, I was super excited to get Frank on, and you're all gonna understand why after listening to us for an hour. It's super good to have you back. We're fresh off of you, so the reason you're here is for the Ridiculum stand-up alumni show, the first annual that y'all performed in last night. And how do you feel that went?
I'm happy with it.
Yeah?
I thought everyone did a good job. There weren't really any weak links in the set list. What's the list of people?
Set list.
Set list.
Set
Okay.
list.
Yeah. I know comedy. I know what words are.
That's what words are. Do you?
Yeah.
I was very curious because Mister said something last night that I was curious about. I mean, I also don't know how much you were doing, but watching Kevin and I I don't know. I'm curious, and we built the set list or anything. How was it being from now this perspective of I was just a comedian last night. I didn't have to worry about exec things or whatever. How was it just showing up as a performer?
Oh, super easy, super nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had my stuff to worry about, and then I got to watch you all stress about getting the show together, and having to bring the stool, which for years
That was you.
Yeah.
That was you, man.
I almost brought it up from Raleigh, where I'm living now.
That would have been great. That was a stool that you had, right? That's your stool.
Yep.
And so after Frank left, we were we need a stool. And it took us way too long to realize how we could get one. It's just, they're in the apartments here.
Oh, so that you didn't buy that with? I was wondering if you were gonna spend club budget on that once I left.
No. I mean, so Kevin and also myself and other people that have been there's stools in the West apartments, and so I'm Kevin, you bring the stool from now on. And I'm sure that's how they'll do it after Kevin's gone. Yeah, but for a second, it did take us way too long to be how do we get a stool? Frank always should we call Frank? Should we he lives close. Can we get him can we just get his stool, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have come and brought it if
definitely.
if you had asked.
Yeah, definitely.
Nowadays, I don't know if I can.
Yeah, it would be a bit of a trip. Though I could get your autograph again, and then you're obligated to come bring it.
Ooh, I like giving out autographs.
We'll talk about it after the show.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. Super excited to have you. To start off, as you know, because you've listened to a few episodes, we're going to talk about our coffee table books. And listeners, you got to be so excited because I actually know the title of my book this time.
Oh, nice.
I'm not just talking about it vaguely. It's called Improv Nation. So my coffee table book is called Improv Nation: How We Made a Great American Art by Sam Wasson. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm going to show Frank only. It looks like that.
Yeah.
And I have yet to read it. And it's about improv, and those are the two things that people need to know about me. I don't like reading, and I love improv. So that's me.
You have You have this. You
I
have
have this. I have this in my apartment.
Is it a smaller thing, or is it an encyclopedia type?
No, so it's like a I don't want to say a history book, but it's like a narrative of the history of how improv started, starting from like the 1940s.
Okay.
And that's all I know. I don't know how or why it started in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Something maybe like improv probably started in the 1940s.
Yeah.
But it talks about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I want to say stand-up started like around the 30s or so.
Yeah, stand-up's a bit of an older art.
Yeah.
It's definitely a more established art. And that's also why when you tell people about improv, they're like, what? And they're like, well, comedy. And they're like, oh, like stand-up? And it's like, no, it's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Which is a very fun duality to manage, especially if you do both, such as you and I.
Yep.
But you've prepared your coffee table book for this episode.
Yes, I'm very bad at like spontaneous icebreakery type questions like this, because I'm like, there is a correct answer for any answer I give. There's a better one out there that like more encapsulates who I am in this case.
So you're trying to beat the previous guest and future. This is going to be the best answer.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm
this
just
will be the best answer.
Oh, okay.
No, this will be regardless. This will be top of the book stack.
Oh, okay.
This better be amazing.
Well, okay. Well, if it's supposed to be amazing, can
No,
I take
you
half an hour to like look through my phone?
Yeah, you can think about it. We'll cut.
Yeah.
Wow, you took a long time.
Look, I'm sorry. I didn't realize there was going to be that much pressure.
No, it's okay. You got this though.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd say it's not a book. It's a paper, but you could physically put it on a coffee table.
That
if you
fits,
print
man.
it out.
That fits for
Yeah.
you. I'll take that. Absolutely, I will.
Alan Turing's Computing Machinery and Intelligence. It's I've not read it.
Yay!
Yeah, I don't. But yeah, it's a paper where he talks about can machines think.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, which is a question that everyone asks when they meet Frank. 'Cause
Yeah.
he might be a machine.
It kind of sort of fits.
I love it a
feel
lot.
like.
That also,
Yeah.
like, I'm surprised that you haven't read it, because that seems like a thing that you'd be widely fascinated by.
I think it would be. Yeah, I know.
Is it, like, really long?
I don't even know that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Has it been published into any kind of a paperback or like whatever, or is it just like an online paper? Can you just go and read it, or do you have to like buy it? I assume something so crazy and like groundbreaking would have to be like behind a paywall.
I don't know about that. I'm on my phone right now. I think there's just a PDF online right here.
Oh wow.
Oh, 22 pages. Oh, that's readable.
Oh, look at that. We can read that right now.
Yeah.
That's the rest of the episode.
Yep.
Everyone wants that from a comedy interview podcast.
I propose to consider the question, can machines think? This should begin with definitions of meaning the terms machine and think. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Frank's dogtail just like perked up. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna love it."
Yeah, this is right up my alley.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love watching someone live on my show discover that their coffee table book is indeed their coffee table book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
awesome. I love that because I was telling Pat about this in my head, and possibly if this show ever got like a future where this had like a live video set, I have a coffee table and it has a stack of books, and it's everyone's book. And I
that's
love
fun.
that there's just gonna be like a thin paper in between, and yours is there, but you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And I love it. That's awesome. Thanks for giving us that. This show, Frank, because you were so curious what it's about, is about people's comedy journey. And how fun has it been to? I'm curious, like, what's it been like to listen to other people who you've gone on that journey with in some ways? Because you've listened up until the one that's been released at this point, right?
Yeah, which at the time of this recording is
Is
Siobhan's
Siobhan's.
is the most recent one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard all four. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I know some people better than others. Like of your four guests, I know Siobhan the best. I feel like I probably know the least about Kevin because we didn't have a lot of overlap while I was still here.
Definitely.
So
I'm sure that was interesting then.
that was interesting.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I think for me as well. Except Siobhan had some details that I didn't exactly know about, but I was there for her entirety of like being in Ridiculum. Kevin was also the one that I was like, I'm gonna know the least about, or at least of what he tells me about, because he did like stuff in New York and stuff like that. So that was really fun to listen to as well. But I'm curious, like, and we're gonna get to your comedy journey, but I'm ready for you to point out all the inaccuracies that your fellow comedians have said in their journeys. You need to give me the complete story, Frank.
Oh.
Do you need another 30 minutes?
Yeah. Can we like cut?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Jeez, that was 45. You are taking up a bit of my time.
See, you didn't have to say it was 45. They would have assumed it was 30.
I
had you
know,
said
but I
that.
have to be real with my audience. I'm so sorry. Take it away. I know. I'd say I know half of your comedy journey, but the other half I'm not so sure about. I only know because of like Ridiculor and people talking about it. So tell me where we start, and it doesn't have to be in college because it's not the same for everyone. Pat's didn't start necessarily in college, you told me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so your first experience, interaction, exposure, or like wanting to do comedy in any way, where does that start for you?
I suppose for me it mostly starts in college because I never thought of myself as doing comedy just as an activity until I got here. I have always sort of been... I do have a tendency just in my everyday life to try to crack jokes whenever I can think of one. Like, I don't know, at the end of improv practices, I assume you're still doing this. There's a game called Innuendo where we just kind of all go up and, say, oh, I saw a movie about such and such. And the category is...
You did love yourself some innuendo. That was right up your alley. you were good at that, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed that. And I kind of do that sort of, like, anytime like a joke presents itself, it's quantity over quality, much to the chagrin of my family, especially my brother Michael, who will consistently point out that I make a lot of jokes that are not funny.
I do enjoy that when innuendo occurs. And sorry, I didn't give Frank the proper chance to really explain it, but it's like just making like dumb puns or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or like I like my coffee like this. Like that's a common one that we don't even do, but that's one that everyone recognizes it from.
Yeah, like you get a category like, oh, like vehicles, and then someone will go up and say, I saw a movie about trains, and it was so bad.
How bad was it?
It went off the rail. Yeah.
Whoa, and usually the reaction is, and so I was saying innuendo is a game that we all kind of like give each other the benefit of the doubt when that happens, because that's the game. The game is, let's see how bad or good. Sometimes they're brilliant.
So, yeah, every so often you get like a really good one.
Yeah, but even if you get a bad one, it's almost the same reaction because that's the point of the game, which is great. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's a great activity though, because like when we're all in a group and we're trying to come up with stuff, it is like a quantity over quality game. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, like the best way to play that is to just anytime you think of something, you say it, even if it's the worst joke you've ever thought of in the world.
Absolutely, and also what's really fun, and Frank knows and relates to this too, which I've felt even more as I've grown and become kind of like and put in like a leadership position of this club, is like towards the end when they're like good one, but we have to end on like a good one. Like usually we would, and so if there's no like firecrackers of innuendos, we sit there and we're like, guys, we got to come up with something or we can't leave the room. Like that's usually how it would go. And so it's a fun group experience of both bad and good jokes and a bad and good experience at times. Sometimes there's been times where I've been like, I just want to leave the room. And Andrew was like, no, we need a good one and then we can leave. But this needs to be good. We can't just all die right now.
Yeah.
So you love making jokes?
Yeah, I like making jokes. I've done it more since I joined a comedy club, but I mean, growing up, I think there's always been like a little bit of a tendency to like try to make people laugh around me. Maybe that's a glorified way of saying it. I crack jokes every so often. That's the start of my comedy journey.
It's not always the case, but like that, it makes sense that like a lot of people who end up being comedians or doing like comedy club, like that's sort of part of their personality.
Yeah.
And whenever it's not, that's also like special if they happen to find their way into comedy and they're like, I never liked making jokes. But for the most part, it makes sense that was like your life before doing comedy. It was like passively doing comedy in your everyday life.
Yeah, which is good, and it's good that I've enjoyed. I crack a lot more jokes now that like again, I'm in a comedy club. I played a lot of innuendo. Anytime I could think of something, I say it. No matter
which is always good to do. Anytime you think of anything, say it out loud.
Yeah, just in general, not jokes. Just if I can think of a sentence in my head, I will say it.
Because sometimes it's hard to think of a sentence. Sometimes when I'm talking to people in life, in social settings, I can't think of anything. So whenever I can think of anything, even if it's a joke that's dumb, I guess I got to say it out loud.
Jacob, I relate to that.
I know,
so
right?
Much.
I was so excited to get Frank on.
Yeah.
Because who was it? Was it me and Owen? A few of the guests and I have talked about like hanging with comedians is maybe the easiest for us.
Yeah. Because
they all do like bits and stuff, and also they all understand that if any one of us is socially awkward, we will just take the stage for a minute. And so talking to regular people, that sounds rude, but everyone knows what I mean. Like is like terrifying sometimes. And I was like, Frank's going to get this out of anyone the most so far. And I'm excited to relate on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of on that note, it's sort of interesting. I had done a little bit of stuff before I joined Ridiculum. I was in John Paul Spiro's stand-up comedy class.
Oh, you did this before you joined Ridiculum?
Before I joined Ridiculum.
Oh,
So yeah,
talk about that for a little bit.
yeah. So it was my sophomore year, like first semester sophomore year. I don't remember why I did it other than just like, hey, that would be kind of weird and dumb if I just did a 1-credit stand-up comedy class, on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone when I was like interviewing for colleges, someone gave me the advice of like, oh, just jump on everything you can. You won't, regret trying a bunch of new things.
Do a dumb class.
Yeah.
It's probably not dumb. You'll probably come out of the class thinking, God, that wasn't as dumb as I thought. But if you think it's dumb, go do it. And then you'll come out of it like, I'm glad I did it. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Again, quantity over quality. And if you do enough stuff, like you're going to find some great stuff in there.
If you do enough stuff, you graduate. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which in this case, I did that. I did like a 5-minute set at the end of that, which I mean is how that class goes. They do like they're doing
your only grade is to do the final performance.
Yeah, which
basically.
is just a comedy show where they kind of just cycle through everyone and we all do our things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it went well. I haven't I have a video of it. I don't think I've shown. I don't think most anyone in Ridiculum has seen it. I know there were a couple people, Grant and Chris Whitty, I think. Oh no, I think it was Jack Brenner and Chris Whitty. There were like a couple like older Ridiculum members who had, who like came to it, which was really nice of them.
Awesome.
But
you had already known them because you did this, or did you join Ridiculum in the middle of doing this class?
So yeah, I joined Ridiculum like pretty late in that semester.
Okay,
so
cool.
like I think like November-ish.
Oh, that's cool. So you joined, and they were like, "Oh, this guy's doing stand-up before he did stand-up with us." Or stand-up didn't exist in Ridiculum at that point, right? Or it did.
It kind of sorted. I think
this was what year? Your first semester of sophomore was.
Yeah. So this was the second year of Ridiculum's existence.
So 2019, the first year of stand-up's existence. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. I would love to show you at some point because I kind of want to just brag about how well my first set did. I kind of sort of locked into my. When I do stand up, I sort of have a persona that's a little like only slightly exaggerated version of me in real life, which is kind of an awkward math nerd. Who can't always talk that good.
It's really it's very unique and it is very Frank. Mm-hmm. It is like Frank isn't that what he is on stage exactly, but it's not like not Frank.
No.
It's like a deviation of Frank. Like that's it.
Yeah. And a minor deviation of me as well.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd gotten kind of my feet wet a little bit. There were just a bunch of posters around for a Ridiculum show. I went to a show kind of randomly. It seemed like a fun thing to do on probably a Saturday night is when that would have been. Spit Take was the name of the show. For
Spit Take.
Ridiculum people listening to this.
I'm the nerd that knows the name of every one of these shows because because when I was a first year, I was like, I'm gonna watch every single show, and that will make me a better comedian. It didn't. It did not, but I also had like all the time in the world. I remember coming to practices and like Becca would go, "You watched every show?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, you guys," and Becca I think was like, "I don't think I've watched any of the shows we've posted on Villanova television." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I did, and I know about Spit Take, and Spit Take was fun." Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the only time they did it or if they've never done it since, but they had 2 shows that night.
Yeah, which is.
Yeah.
I think it's because y'all had the size to do that, right? Like you had a lot of people in Ridiculum.
I mean, I wasn't in the club at that point, so don't ask me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I
forget. No, that was maybe the biggest Ridiculum's been. And it's probably more so that it's just I don't want to say that Ridiculum's dying. I just want to say that I think the club size has found its median at this point. At the beginning, I think it was a ton of people.
Yeah, it's not bad to have like a slightly smaller group. One of our best years of the club was like during COVID when there were like 7 of us, and I mean, yeah.
I've heard tell of like some of the best improv occurred on the Sack Garage while wearing masks. Like yeah, and that's I don't think it has to be a huge group. A lot of the groups that we've interacted with in like going to Georgetown. But there are also long form groups, which is a different kind of breed, and you have to maybe have a different size for that. But they have like maybe 7 to 8 members, and because they also cut. Ridiculum doesn't cut people, but they do like long form. Yeah, groups don't have to be incredibly big, but it is crazy how many people in that. Like I've watched that. I recently, just because I had time to, and I'm a nerd, watched the first show that Ridiculum did, and ton of people, a huge amount of people. They did like 12 games. It was insane. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But getting back on track to your comedy journey around the stand-up, the stand-up showcase, like for the class.
Yep.
And that went well. And then post that, did you really start to get involved with Ridiculum? Were you already pretty getting involved with Ridiculum?
I was already kind of sort of involved. Kind of sort of two reasons why I joined Ridiculum. It wasn't like it's not like I joined the stand-up class and I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing comedy now. Like Ridiculum and the stand-up thing were very separate events that just happened near the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, I went to the show and like a couple things. Like first, I thought, oh yeah, that seems fun. I'd try that. I mean, they look like they're having fun up there. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is like I came to college. I had been homeschooled. I mean, obviously, or not for like a good part of my life. I didn't really know social skills, and I was well aware of that. And I thought I need to get better at this somehow. And I knew some stuff about improv already, like kind of like basic rules, like yes and like a lot of the like kind of like ways that that works and people do it. I thought this is maybe the most academic way I can learn social skills that there is.
It is like taking social skills and like throwing it into like I don't even know what kind of like a particle accelerator and getting something out of it and be like, this is how you do it. We found the answer to the next like universe or something.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting way of saying it. It is a very like, you could definitely look at it as an academic approach with social skills because it takes social skills, puts it into an on-stage thing.
Yeah.
But there's so many things in improv that can just make you better at social skills or just make you better at life. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, improv is just, you're just making stuff up. It's as simple and stupid as that. And a lot of, the rules, and I'm doing air quotes around that, or actually, no, there are rules.
But there's some,
yeah.
The rules that absolutely can and at times should be bent.
Yeah.
I'd argue.
Yeah. If you know when to bend them.
Definitely.
But yeah, yes and, which is just, agree with whatever the other person's doing and like just add on to it rather than saying, no, I don't like your thing, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Like trying not to ask questions so that the other person doesn't have to like do all the work on their own in like creating the scene and making stuff up. A lot of the rules aren't so much like how to make stuff up. It's like, how do you support the other person and how did like the two of you work together to create something that's better than the two of you could, like that's better than the sum of its parts.
No, definitely. And that's like, I wish I had the time to like people that pull me aside like after the shows that have been like how do you practice for this? If I had the time to sit them down at my podcast and explain to them what you just explained, like that's it. We do not practice making stuff up. You can't do that. You've possibly broken it, but you practice supporting each other while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like if you practice like the actual art of making it up, you've then scripted it. Like that's not improv.
Yeah.
You're right. The rules of improv are not how to do improv. It's how to help each other do improv.
Yeah.
Which is that's very interesting. That's a very cool way to think about it because it's like you can't do it if you're both up there like I'm gonna do it my own way, and then it's just not gonna be fun. People are gonna see you butt heads on stage.
Yeah,
that's a very cool way of thinking about it. It's rules for helping each other not do improv because you can't practice actual improv. Well, you can practice it.
Yeah.
You can't prepare.
Yeah. Also, anyone can make stuff up. Like that's not like a unique activity to like us because we do it,
Everyone was a kid. For the most part, everyone as a kid played like make-believe or just, or like at one point had an imaginary friend maybe. It's quite possibly the most deep-rooted sense of imagination in our brains to just make a thing up in any form possible. So putting the rules and guidelines around how to help each other do that in a comedic way that's successful, that's just what we do. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And like, and it doesn't exactly translate because stand-up is obviously a different art, but it's like, It's similar. You just go do the writing, and the practicing it is like the practicing how to find a joke, how to deliver the joke.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I've found, even though like a lot of comedians write alone, they have to like prepare their jokes alone, prepare full sets alone for comedy clubs. What's great and I love about being in our comedy club is that it's the practicing stand-up is practicing helping each other write stuff, practicing how to bounce off of each other and workshop jokes.
Yeah.
That's what I really enjoy about it too.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, as far as like comedy journey goes, I had like some kind of sort of, I hadn't done improv before, but I could kind of sort of tell that like there's some stuff here that like I could apply to, you know, like everyday conversations or, you know, like other social situations I might find myself in. And I think for the most part that ended up kind of being true. Like, you know, the rules of like, sometimes I'll just be in a regular conversation with someone, which I still have to like think through mechanically in my head.
It's so difficult to talk to people.
Yeah.
It sucks.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I think of like, okay, yes, and whatever they just said, I'll, you know, find a way to like build off of that. Or, you know, if someone says like, you know, how do you like escalate like a good idea or like a good conversation? Like, I mean, yeah, I kind of sometimes work through conversations in my head like improv scenes because I can't do it naturally. Again,
Absolutely.
that's the machines think reason for my, you know, particular thing.
Frank the robot has just explained to us how he blends amongst the humans.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It sounds like an exaggeration, but no, it's very much not. Yeah.
It feels like that sometimes, especially, and I talk about like the circle of comedians hanging out and like cracking jokes with comedians and then going to like other real social settings outside that bubble. Sometimes it does feel like you're a machine that just isn't like running the right program once you're like out there with like people that you don't really know or like have to like do an interview. God, interviews.
Yeah.
And I've not done a lot of interviews, or even maybe talking like professors or even like networking calls. I've used improv in that way where it's like, okay, I'm freaking out. Let me just, I'll bounce off of whatever they say. Interviews, actually, you should ask questions, which is the opposite of what you should do in improv all the time. But you're right. Sometimes it's not it's not a feeling that's specific to you, Frank. Sometimes we just all feel like robots when talking to people that are not us. And I don't want to say that to like sound like, oh well, you're not comedians like us and be like pretentious. And people that I'm friends with understand that some people like me are annoying in the way that they try to make everything a joke, and you understand that makes me a little different. And that's what I mean by us and you.
Same.
Because you're blessed with the gift, everyone else, of just being able to talk normally, and you don't have to make it funny, and you don't have to stop yourself in the middle of a conversation like, oh, we're talking about something very serious. I shouldn't have tried to make a joke, or like there's no opportunity for joke. Don't try to find it.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, in the car ride up here yesterday, from Raleigh to Philly, like, am I a comedian? Like, is that like
every single person except for maybe like Kevin and Noel who are like pursuing that have asked that question or like thought about that before, and I've heard them talk to me about it before they get on the show. They're like, "What? But am I?" But yes,
we're just kind of throwing that word around for anyone now.
No. I'd say so. Would you like to answer whether or not I think you think you're a comedian, or you like to how would you justify it?
The way you just described it actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, like for something like improv, I'd say like a lot, like most anyone I feel like could do improv as long as you like can work well with other people and like can learn to work well with other people. It's a very intimidating activity. I've been there. I joined an improv club and I was terrified for the first several months to a year of it. But it's a thing anyone could do. Comedy is a thing anyone can do. I think, it's just a matter of doing it. Like you say, like being a person who cracks jokes all the time. Because people tend to be good at the stuff that they do a lot, and people tend to do a lot of the stuff that they're good at. It's kind of a virtuous cycle.
Absolutely, definitely.
So
it is really about just doing it. Like, and I'm serious about it. And I've like told friends of mine who Like when my first year of college and I joined comedy club, and so then like friends of mine would ask me like, how's that going? You do comedy? And like would ask about it. It's like, what is improv even like or something? And then like they would say something funny. I would go, you could also join. That was funnier than anything I've ever said.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, but I couldn't. I'm like, you could, you just did. So comedians exist out there. They just haven't been activated by actually like doing it, I feel.
Oh yeah, some of the funniest people I know haven't like touched comedy at all.
And refuse to, and probably never will, which sucks. But also maybe that's okay. You don't have to quantify it or like justify it in your own head of like doing it for real. You can just be a funny person in the world.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But yeah, I think so many people are or could be or were or should be comedians. Yeah, and I really thought about that too, especially thinking about like the title of this of this podcast. I was like, okay, well, who qualifies as a comedian? I was like, well, everyone I've been in this comedy club with did comedy at some point technically, and so that's a comedian. Like you, other than the alumni show last night and then the improv alumni show, haven't really been able to do much comedy since you were in the comedy club.
Correct.
And that doesn't mean that you stop being a comedian. I think it just means that you stop doing comedy as consistently as you did before, because it's hard to once you're out of college.
Yeah. I mean, I still make jokes all the time. I feel like I might have like turned my family cracks jokes around each other. I feel like a little bit more now than they did before, just because they're forced to be near me all the time.
I feel the same way a little bit too when I get home and I like crack jokes a little more. I know it has changed the family dynamic like a little bit, not entirely, but it is fun to see. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. So yeah, I've never done comedy professionally. I've been in a few improv shows and a few stand-up shows, most of them with Ridiculum. But yeah, I guess I'm not even really doing it on an amateur level, but just in everyday life, being a comedian,
I think it's a term that you mentioned that it is being thrown around. I think it's a term that should be thrown around a little more, especially because I had this misconception. And again, talking about like back when we were talking about improv and stand-up, improv is a younger art form. There was a time I forget. I think it was when I was watching Dropout, and like they would mention some like improvisers that are on the show and called them comedians. And in my head, I was like, that's not stand-up comedians or comedian. And then I had to think about it for a second. Like, no, stand-up comedians are stand-up comedians, and improv comedians are improv comedians. And you can call them comics or improvisers, but they are all comedians. Yeah. And there's this moment of like, oh, like egg on my face, that's a comedian still. It's just a different kind of There's comedians that straight up just do movies, like comedians that have never done stand-up, but they're hilarious in terms of... Yeah. I could be wrong. Does Will Ferrell, has he done stand-up before? Is he... I mean, I know he was on SNL and he did sketch comedy or whatever. Yeah. But especially now, it's a lot of, like, doing comedy movies. I'm trying to think of another comedic actor.
I don't know. There's probably... Even if, like... If Will Ferrell's ever done stand-up, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
If for some reason he has, you could find some, like, SNL alum who's, like, big in movies now who's probably never done stand-up before.
I was going to say...
There's someone in that, like, genre of person.
I was going to say, even in people that haven't even done... Like if even, like, actors that just have done comedy movies and not even in SNL, that's a comedian. That's a comedian. And whether you believe that the comedy comes from the writing of the movie or how they still acted in that movie and are the reason you laughed. So, like... That's a comedian. I think it should be thrown around more. Yeah. And there's like subsections to that. There's like, I'm a comedic actor. I'm an improviser. I'm a comic. I'm a sketch writer. I'm a TikTok interviewer. My name is Nolby Doherty. Yeah, I think it can be thrown around a lot. To get kind of back to your comedy journey,
I
like this interjecting thing though. I haven't done this with other guests, and so I enjoy it a lot. It is how I think you and I can probably work as two brains on a podcast. So I like how it is. Yeah. Going back to, where did we last leave off? Where are we?
I joined
Ridiculum. We haven't got to your first show yet, right?
No.
Awesome.
I joined Ridiculum to learn social skills. I thought I'm going to join this comedy club. I'm going to learn the principles of improv, and I'm going to apply these in my everyday life and make more friends that way.
You had a plan.
I had a plan. And then what actually happened is I joined Ridiculum, and I became friends with the people in Ridiculum, which is so much better of a plan and less complicated.
Can you imagine if you had joined and been like, okay, I have what I need. Thank you so much. Walk out the door. Go make friends.
I mean...
and they're like, does he not realize that we were friends with him?
Yeah,
That's hilarious to think about.
No, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, Ridiculum wasn't even like my main club, my main non-academic activity for a while. Because I joined in November. I was in a show, like I was in like one game. I was in Clap Down the Line, which is a game with 6 people. Like I had like the smallest role you could have in a show because I was a new person and there were a ton of people, and I honestly don't quite think I was ready for anything more at that point. It took me a while to realize that I could do improv too. Now I'm going on a tangent, but I don't think I actually thought I was funny for like about a full year until.
That's totally fair. I think when I
It's totally fair
because you weren't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No, because I remember it was an opposite experience for me. I didn't join Ridiculum thinking like same with you. I hadn't done comedy before, and I simply was like I should join a thing.
Yeah.
And do it to meet people. And I didn't like do my first scene in practice and go, I'm so funny. Even after the first show, I wasn't like, I'm so funny. It did take me, cause it's hard to admit you're funny.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for like a minute.
Okay.
It's hard to admit you're funny.
Yes.
Because if you do it, you feel like you're being like, I'm so funny. You feel like you're balanced. I feel like for me, it feels like I'm on like a seesaw, but on my own, and I'm like, I'm funny, but not like that. I didn't mean like that. No, but I am funny, and I do comedy, and people do laugh when I perform, but I don't think I'm like awesome. Yeah, like it's so weird.
It is a thing that you kind of feel like other people should be telling you rather than you telling other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to it's hard to admit. It's hard to face that you're funny and that you're a comedian.
Yeah. I don't know why. It should be welcome news. I should be like ready at a moment's notice to, accept that I'm funny because that would make me feel better about myself. But no, like, yeah, it took a year. It took in my junior year, which I think we were in a classroom for the scene I'm thinking of. We played a game and it went particularly well. And I was like, I can do this.
Oh,
like
interesting.
It took the best improv scene I've maybe ever done for me to be like, okay, I don't suck.
Yeah, I was gonna leave after this practice. I could do this maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember sort of details about the scene? Anything about it?
Oh yeah, I remember it. So it was Dr. Know-It-All, which is a character game. You have like 3 experts, and they kind of we poll the audience for qualities about them, and then they basically get their advice on several audience problems. I played a character called Jack the Ant Whisperer, which kind of funny how it came about. In practices, because it's just us in a room. In an improv show, you poll the audience for stuff. We just poll each other, and I like to throw out ridiculous, stupid prompts for people because I think it's funny.
Abstract stuff's really fun to come from Frank's mouth. Sometimes he would yell some weird stuff. It was great.
Yeah, how as an alumni, I'll come back and I'll yell each other's dads anytime you ask for a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will continue to do that until you actually use it.
Until we do it.
Which you very well can.
The first time I remember
you don't have to keep ignoring me.
The first time I remember hearing each other's dad was in my first show, and I think it was being given to I forget what it was, but yeah, someone said each other's dads, and I went, wait a minute, what? Yeah, it was great.
That's not possible.
That's not how that works.
That's why it's funny.
That's why it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll do it.
Yeah. Hopefully one day you do it. Then I'll shut up about it finally. But yeah, no. We had just done another round of Dr. Know-It-All. I think they asked for a college major for Jay, who was the president of Ridiculum for 3 years, and I said Rube Goldberg Architecture because I thought that was funny. And
that's cool. That's fun.
Jay was Dr. Ruben Goldberg, and he did a great job with what was a very stupid, specific prompt. He had a great character.
That has a lot of potential, though. That's good, though. I like that.
Every one of his solutions to everyone's problems involved a very complicated machine that starts with I think blowing on a pinwheel. I think that was kind of a line that came back a few times and got a laugh every time because it was
blow on a pinwheel.
It begins with
it'll hit a marble.
Wait for it. Blowing into a pinwheel. Yeah. Jay's fantastic.
I need to get Jay on the show. I need to see Jay again. I just need to see him in general. I would love to talk to him again.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say that when I went up there, Jay gave me Ant Whisperer as an occupation.
He was like, "Fuck you, man."
Yeah.
You get to be Ant Whisperer.
Maybe. I don't know what was going on through Jay's head, but I'm glad he did it. And because I was the third one to go, and I spent the entire time all the other people were doing their introductions thinking of what is a good name for an ant whisperer, and the best I could come up with was Jack. But whatever. I was Jack.
It's Jack.
Yeah. This is going to be great for people listening because I'm going to like act stuff out and only Jacob can see it.
I will describe it. He's rubbing his hand.
Yeah. So like yeah.
He's right. He's doing it in a cool way.
Yeah. Yeah. I look so cool right
He looks
now.
cool right now. Yeah.
Wow, what a cool guy.
This looks cool. I can see why it went well.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no, like I have like my hand kind of out, face down, and I like pretend there's a little ant on it, and I'm like petting the ant. I'm like, yes, this is Little Jack. Little Jack says hello and wishes you all good tidings. I talk in this creepy, whispery tone.
I haven't heard that voice come out of Frank in a while. Oh
Yeah.
man, that's that's a voice you use for every character, but that style of voice, I recognize it.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of voices. I decided to for that one.
You don't know.
And it worked. I don't know. I had a couple answers to things. Someone asked about. See, again, I remember it well because like this is the first time I thought it was funny. We're also going to spend like 8 minutes on
No,
this.
it's fine. It's fine. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Like we got like 3 questions each, and I think one of the questions was like, "Oh, what are you going to be for Halloween?" Because I think Halloween was coming up, and I said I was going to dress up as an ant, and you should all dress up as ants too, and then we can all
Dress up as ants.
Yeah, we'll all dress up as ants. I built a giant human-sized ant colony out in the countryside. And we can all go live there and gather food from urban areas.
Sounds like a weird
to our
A24
queen.
film or something. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
It got a good reaction, and then like after the thing, I was like, okay, yeah, I can.
I can do this. Yeah.
I feel weird.
yeah.
Now I'm on a podcast bragging about an improv scene I did like
Dude,
3-4 years ago.
If there's anyone to blame, it's me. I made a podcast with the premise of asking comedians what it's like to do comedy. I'm sure something like that was gonna come up at some point. Can't say
Yeah.
you're the first. I'm sure someone else. I don't remember. It's only 5. We're only 6 episodes in at this point,
Yeah.
and I don't remember what people have said. But
Oh.
I'm sure I've described an improv scene before.
Yeah.
It is weird to do that. Yeah.
I will say, I don't know if this is just me or if this is a thing that, like, if I ever tell a really good joke, I don't forget it. And, like, if I'm ever having a down day, I might think back to, like, something I said 2 years ago that was funny in the moment and just feel better. I don't,
yeah.
It sounds narcissistic, and it maybe kind of is.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good to. It's like appreciating your work in a certain way. I don't. I will. Not necessarily with like improv or like with watching my stand up, because I don't enjoy watching my stand up very often. But like projects I've made, or like a film or like a music video. Like if I'm ever feeling down, I'm like, I made this cool thing. I'm gonna watch it again. And yeah, I watch my music video that I made a year ago often because I enjoy watching it because it was good and I like it. And sometimes if I'm feeling horrible one day, I'm like, let's just watch this cool thing I made.
Yeah.
And remember that I can make cool things or make funny jokes.
Yeah, I've done that too. I've gone back to my MLA bit on YouTube,
Yeah.
my stand-up that I did.
Which you can do twice now.
Yeah, there's
you
going to be.
performed that last
I performed
night.
that last night again. There's going to be a second video
Absolutely.
on YouTube.
I'm
'cause
excited.
We need that.
I think because of how long it's been, and because MLA was like your second to last year, I think. Was it your second to last year in the
Yep.
club? It's maybe like MLA bit, 2 sets, and then it's going to be MLA bit again in terms of like the chronology of like your stand up.
I think it's MLA and then
Is it 1, 2, 3 or just one?
So we did 2 stand-up shows between my first MLA set and last night, or that I was in at least.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them was not recorded,
Oh,
and I
okay,
also
so-
performed largely the same material.
Okay.
So there's the MLA bit. There's this other one that I don't really watch because it's not as good as the MLA bit, and then there's going to be a second MLA bit.
And in between, and the ghost of that is something that wasn't posted or recorded, and it's roughly same material as the one that's in between. So it's a palindrome of your comedy. It's fun,
Yeah.
and I think it's great. And we'll get to MLA bit at some point. I'm trying my best to walk us through your journey.
I mean, we've kind of gotten to the point where like the year after you came around and you would have seen everything else. Yeah, I mean, I joined the club after every scene I was in and after every show, or after the show I was in the first time. Like I got the same feeling like, oh, I survived. I'm okay. I'm alive still. And then like it took about a full calendar year for me to be like, okay, sometimes I'm funny. And then, senior year came around, and just by virtue of being, one of the few people that was in the club. I was on exec. I was the vice president, but I mean, let's be honest. I wasn't like the second most important person.
I
in
don't
the
know,
club
man.
that
It
year.
was so fun. Because I remember, that was like a thing. It was like, Jay was president and you were vice president my freshman year.
Yeah.
But then like Mr. was doing a lot of behind the scenes work.
Andrew was doing a lot of the running the club.
But also, but it was fun. Like Andrew was doing that, but also it was good to have that balance of like, because Mr. was doing a lot of behind the scenes and also like running club and doing communications of like when practices are.
Yeah.
But then also Frank and Jay were there fucking great at improv, and so I had that to look at as well. So it was like, and so was Mr. And so it was like this more than the triad, but it was this triad of like the people leading the club, and it was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about that executive dynamic for a second? Like, how was that? How was being on exec, or when you first like joined exec? Was it like we need you, Frank. We need someone to like get in there, or were you like, I just want to?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to. I mean, I wanted to like help the club in whatever capacity they needed me. I mean, it had done a lot for me. Yeah, I said earlier, like, Ridiculum wasn't even my main thing when I first joined. I was in the, like, Villanova Billiards Club that was kind of like my
You were the president of that club at one point.
I was the president of the club. Same year I was VP of Ridiculum.
Yeah.
But COVID happened and everything was shut down, and Billiards Club couldn't meet for a year because, like, we couldn't meet for a year. And the only thing I really had going for me was we did Ridiculum practices in the SAC garage in our portable chairs that Villanova gave out, wearing masks all from 6 feet away. And most of the few of us that were left doing that just became exec the next year. I had done 2 shows before I was put on exec. And then my first show as an exec member, I was in like 4 games and introducing like 2 more.
Was that Cowgirl show? Or no, that was Vaccine?
Vaccine was my second show.
You weren't on exec yet.
I was not on exec yet, yeah. So my sophomore year, I'm in 1 show, and then COVID happens. The next year, like during COVID, we only got 1 show in because we kept trying to schedule it, and it had to go through CAT, and they kept canceling it on us.
And you also named it like 2 or 3 times or something? You renamed it something?
I think it was COVID as an abbreviation for something, and then it became Vaccine. And as soon as
the
we
more
renamed it to
appropriate
Vaccine,
thing to name.
As soon as we renamed it to Vaccine, like it went through. Like we did the show.
I wonder why. I wonder if they were like, well, you shouldn't name it COVID.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
It's a head scratcher for sure.
I like the idea, and it was an acronym, by the way. They didn't just call it Vaccine. I don't remember what the acronym is, but
shoot, yeah,
I couldn't tell you.
I'm trying to think.
I don't know. It's Vaccine's also a lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters. Yeah.
Obviously, the first acronym starts with comedians or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about COVID?
COVID or Vaccine.
Okay.
COVID's probably an easier one to
Vaccine.
remember, but I don't know what Vaccine was. It was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you did Vaccine, but your first show as an exec, that was Cowgirl, right? That was when we wore the Cowgirl shirts. Or no, it was the town show.
Yeah, actually, it was the town show.
Yeah,
it was fun. There were 6 of us, and I was still the newest one. I was still the newest exec member. Like the 4 other people on exec that year were on exec the previous year.
Oh,
so
wow, that's crazy. I don't have that perspective, and it's definitely just like the shader of being someone new to college, of like anyone older than you probably was there for 50 years before you got there.
Yeah. No, I didn't have a sense of like how long different people were there, like of everyone who had been in the club before me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, no, everyone had been on exec already. I kind of feel like I might have been like in practice with the amount I ended up contributing, maybe like the number 5 person in that room, but which is totally fine.
That's still 5 people. It was 5 people contributing. It wasn't like 4 and Frank. It still was 5 people that were like teaching me improv and on the stand-up side, teaching me how to write stand-up. Your first stand-up show was the MLA bit, correct? Your first stand-up show with Ridiculum.
With Ridiculum was the MLA bit. That was my second stand-up show overall because
it was kind of
I did a one-off thing.
You did the thing with the stand-up class and then a while until you do your next stand-up show, right?
Yeah, I'd been working on the MLA bit for like a year up till that. I had meant to perform it at a couple other at like another show, and I wasn't able to. So yeah, the MLA bit was a while in the making.
To explain, we'll give it the explanation. Basically, Frank dunks on the Modern Language Association for like 10 minutes. Yeah. And it's great.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, it's just that. yeah, I feel like, yeah, yeah, again, that's another thing that I can look back on days when I'm not feeling great and be like, I was funny this one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that transitions well into a question I had about
Oh yeah, go for it.
kind of related to the MLA set.
Yeah. Are we making good time?
We're making good time.
Okay.
Well, I'll ask this question. We'll get to the end of, not the end, but where we are now, because I do want to ask. I mean, I know I was there for your 2 last years, but I'm still curious to talk about it. But kind of like collaboration in comedy is like a huge piece of its success. Like, as you know, like your stand up set that we just talked about, like the MLA set, like came from a thorough collaboration through stand-up meetings of like different people helping you build that. Like you had the idea, but it was a lot of like, I mean, from what I've heard from you, like that becomes what it is now, or what we heard last night, because collaboration happens in the stand-up meetings.
Yeah, I could point to some of which jokes were offered by which people.
Yeah.
I basically wrote out the bones for that, and I got a lot of help like punching it up, which is just when you take like a thing and you just insert more jokes into it, because there's, one punchline every 4 sentences where it should be every 1 or 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you feel that collaboration in general, does that feel like imperative to everything you've done in comedy, or can you point to certain things where you're like, no, I can, and this will be another thing where you're gonna have to give yourself a compliment if you're able to. But are there other points in like comedy, whether it's improv, whether it's stand up, whether it's sketch, even, of like, are there points of like in the comedy bubble where you're like, no, I can point to this that I can do pretty well on my own, but like writing a stand-up set, definitely I love having collaboration?
That's a good question.
And it can be, collaboration's needed everywhere. That can be the answer, because it's definitely a valid answer. Some people I just think, no, you know what, I am really good at this one thing and I don't need help on it, but other things I do need help on. Yeah,
I think short answer, yeah, it's needed everywhere. Because I could point to character improv games that I've done where it's mostly like 3 separate characters interact, like that Dr. Know-It-All with like Jack the Whisperer. That came from me. No one or Jay had a great suggestion, and I
came from your interpretation of the suggestion.
Yeah, I mean everything else about that was all me, but I only started to get good at improv after a bunch of practice and watching a bunch of other people who were better at me and had been doing it for longer, and interacting with them and hanging out and like all this, like I kind of was standing on the shoulders of like a bunch of other, all my friends pretty much.
Mm-hmm. I think that answers my question. I mean, you did, but like collaboration in comedy, I think, especially with stand-up, which can often seem like a solo sport, and it is a solo sport when you go perform it.
Sure.
But in terms of prepping for it, if you have the environment and the connections too, it's very collaborative, and it can be, and it should be.
Yeah.
I think
if I can solely take credit for anything, it would just be the angle that I come at it from, or
you're like character work.
Well, no, I'm thinking of stand-up now. I'm thinking of like the kind of particular shtick that I have of like I'm a nerdy math major, and I'll dress that way, and I'll like make sure you all know it.
Yeah, you play it well, and that is like you on stage.
Yeah, in that like my first stand-up set when I was like with that honors class, like right when I started with the stand-up class, right when I started with, around the time I started with Ridiculum. Like someone commented after the show, like, "Oh, I love like the character you made. Like the way you adjusted your glasses all the time really added to it." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, thanks. That's
not just me.
I did that for the bit." Yeah,
absolutely. I do love. That's one of the best compliments, I think, because I've gotten that. I got that after Georgetown this past year. The last time we did Georgetown, it was like, your character works great. I love the little things you did. I noticed it, and then I went, thanks.
Yeah.
And like I was doing like an outlandish character, and it wasn't part of my personality, so it's different than what you're saying here. But yeah, little like, I don't know, little details, whether it's on purpose or not. Like I love people noticing that, because sometimes I will do one on like you've been in like a scene and you're like, no one's gonna notice this, but I feel that this character would scratch his nose every minute or something. And you do that, and maybe someone notices it, maybe that adds to it, especially in stuff like Dr. Know-It-All, where if you don't have the spotlight, you can still be doing something on the side, and if someone's like if someone's eyes venture to the right of the stage, they see you doing that and they chuckle a little bit. Like that's great.
That's fun when you can do it. But I mean, yeah, no, in this case, it was very much I was just being myself on stage, and I didn't realize that. Like, again, I didn't create this character out of thin air. I don't know how to be anything else other than the thing that I am, and I can just put that on a stage more or less. I'm exaggerating certain parts of it, but again, if there's one thing I can solely take credit for, and I can't even really take credit because I just kind of ended up this creature that I am.
This is just Frank
by accident. I guess it would just be I am my own thing, and I thought to write a thing about the MLA because that's the place where my mind went when I'm thinking, oh, what?
Because the MLA is weird.
Yeah.
Legitimately, you told that joke, and I was like, oh, this is very Frank. And then after you finished pitching it at practice, or like you ran it before the show, I was like, oh my God, he's right. That's such a weird system of citing and like it's so strange.
Yeah. The most successful stand-up things I've come up with all come from things that are, I think, funny in real life if you can explain it straight to people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of weird stuff about MLA and MLE format and how like specific and how rigorously enforced it is in schools sometimes. I got marks off on a paper in like as a college student on something, and that's kind of what sparked that whole thing is because like, come on, don't. Yeah. Like,
my learning is not being hindered by this.
If I was publishing this, someone would say to edit that out and there would be no harm done. Like, I don't need to know all the specific, Yeah.
It pisses Frank off widely, and I'm glad he did stand up about it.
It helps to do stand up about stuff that you're mad at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I enjoyed dismantling that as best as I could.
I hope the Modern Language Association has seen your set and has cried and wept about how inaccurate.
I hope they're shaking in their boots.
Me too.
Yeah.
You're coming for them.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that last year. Because it was my sophomore year was your last year, and you were a little more busy, or you were a little more in and out of practices.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah, but like I want to know, did it feel like I don't know, just like I don't know, talk about what that last year was like, especially because I'm curious, like everyone had, and I'm trying not to pick. I'm trying not to pick at your own personal feelings or whatever. Just like a lot of people you had been doing improv with before, like newer people, and you did improv with us, and it wasn't like you didn't have a group to do improv with, but like a lot of the older people had like already graduated or were gone, or Mr. stayed for only like one semester and then he left that year.
One semester.
One semester. We'll be talking about it, I'm sure. I don't know, just like what did that feel like? Like was it still like, oh, I'm still, did you feel as strong in improv or in stand up as you had before in that year, or was it, I don't know, just like what was that like last year?
As strong in the group, or like that I could still do it,
or that you were just still like as involved, or like or strengthened or anything. Like I'm just curious about like how that felt, because like I asked this because I'm sure I could bounce back on you, because I'm in my last year of Ridiculum right now, and there's parts where I'm like, oh, this is great, and then there's also parts where it's like, I feel that these people are getting funnier than me, and I'm on my way out. And it feels great to know that about my club. But also inside, I'm like, no, please.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to answer part of your question, I did feel a little bit less in it. I mean, the background for that is that I had to take a medical leave of absence like late into my senior year, and the unfortunate thing about that is like when you have to do that, the entire semester kind of becomes a bunch of incompletes. And so like the classes I had been taking that second semester, I had to take again. And because of the way it happened, I could only do I had to basically I had an extra year of college sprung on me last minute that I didn't know I would have. So there was like external stuff going on.
It was a big surprise for us too. We were like, Frank's back for another year. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I told you not long after I figured it out myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, that external stuff, and like I felt weird about it, and I didn't know like is this the place for in a perfect world I would have been gone by now. I'd be off doing my thing. That's not what's going on, and life is what it is. But
was Ridiculum, was the practice room, the meeting room for stand up, was that a nice place to anchor yourself to in that last year?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I felt more like Yeah, I guess I did feel more like I had one foot out the door by that point because I could see the end. I could see the club kind of going on without me. Really, I wasn't on exec that year or anything.
It's weird to see it changing. It's changing now, and I'm still here. It's strange.
Yeah, I think I was kind of witnessing that myself, and I didn't really it didn't need me as much anymore, and that it's comforting to see, and it's weird to see. I think that you were part of not need you so much, not in like a sad way, just like
no, in a way that I think it was. I'm not saying we didn't need Frank anymore. No, but
Yeah.
it was like Frank and Mister and everyone of like I'm thinking about my perspective on that year.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, because we had new people that were leading and stuff, but I was like, oh, we're doing okay, or like we're like you guys gave us literally every tool we needed, and we were like kind of doing good, or like we were like. Because I remember last year I felt it, not as much this year. Oh no, actually, especially this year. Like last year, it's weird when you're like, oh, so we're the older people, and you're like, oh, it's us. We're the people that have to teach the improv and the stand up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as scary as I was anticipating it to be, because it was like, and I'm still talking about my sophomore year, so I wasn't really leading the club, and it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like years after or whatever, and I was like, oh, these people like Frank, like Mister, like Siobhan, like Pat, had given us these tools, and that's why I asked this question, because I was like, what was that perspective? Because our perspective was like, wow, they really prepped us for them being gone. Because then like Mister leaving halfway through, and then us realizing that was our last year with you, Frank, it was like, okay, we're the club now. And it was scary, but it was good to have the tools that were given to us by you. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
And we
that's
do
nice.
appreciate it. It's the transition of it's weird. And I remember my first year in Ridiculum, I was like, I'm never going to feel like stuff's changing, and I fully have felt it every year, and especially this year. And it is really, really strange, but I am enjoying seeing the change. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I love it. And especially, I don't know, just because like you are more in the, I mean, you joined the second year Ridiculum existed. You were there for COVID years. So like that perspective, I think, is especially interesting to hear about from you and people like Mister and people that were in that time of Ridiculum, because they experienced Ridiculum, I don't want to say that it's lowest, but like at a weird time.
Yeah.
And then to see it on its legs after you're on your way out, I have to imagine that felt good.
It felt great watching Ridiculum get so big the year after it was like, like the pool club was kind of the same way, because like there were like entering senior year, there were like 5 people who had been in it before, and we had to like grow it from scratch. And Ridiculum wasn't quite the same way, but it was a lot of we have a very tiny club, and we need to like get ourselves back on our feet, and we did, and we did quickly, and and we got you and Owen and like Justin eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and Siobhan, who kind of feels like she's been around longer than
she was
everyone.
talking about. It was
Yeah.
She had intentions to join her
Mhm.
like, I think she said her freshman year, maybe her freshman year, and then COVID happened, and so like
Yeah.
that was a potential. But yeah,
and Noel and Julia and Georgia, like a lot of people joined at once, and like a lot of funny people. Like you were funny like in your
Thanks.
freshman year. Like
it was fun to get that support. It's intimidating to go into a comedy club, and then it's immediately disarming if they are like, no, that was good, that was funny.
Yeah.
Because it's terrifying. Like, I do remember someone's mentioned a joke of like, oh, we won't let you in the door unless you say a joke at the stand-up. And I was like, oh. And I was like, I know that's a joke, but
Ooh.
it was a joke. And it was Mister, and so I excused the joke because I know he was being really funny and trying to just like
Oh,
connect.
that wasn't like a thing. I thought that like actually happened.
No.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I'm going to come to the stand-up meeting. He was like, all right, well, if you don't tell a joke, we don't let you in. And I was like, oh, no. But it was immediately disarming to like just everyone to be like, no, that was great. That's what we were looking for. And like you do improv for the first time, you do your first scene, and you're like, was that it? Like,
Yeah.
did I do it? All I did was like talk for a minute and like and make like the crowd laugh for like once or something. And they're like,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a lot of like getting better at improv is just you have to realize like,
That's it.
okay, I can do that.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to say underwhelming, but it was underwhelming. I was underwhelmed by the fear I thought I was gonna have, where it was like, I did it, and even in the show too. But I was like, I did it my first scene, and it was like, man, I thought I was gonna like be shaking in my boots. That was like not great, but it wasn't bad. And they were like, yeah, that was funny. That was good. And getting that is great. Which is why it's our top priority this year. Or it's been our top priority, but from like a leadership position now. It's so weird to think about when I joined and now I'm here. Yeah. And you were there for when I joined, and that's so strange.
It's weird for me too to see you all.
I'm sure, dude. I'm sure it's so like I said, like Mr. last night was, and I asked you about like what it was like just being a performer, and Mr. was like, it's so strange seeing you all do the things that I used to have to do. Now I'm just here prepping for my set, and I was like, yeah, it's a weird dynamic that's shifted now.
Yeah, probably maybe more weird for him than me, just because.
He did start the club.
He did start the club. For
still.
As long as I was in the club, there were always people who were in the club for longer than me and who had were kind of running things more than me.
Which is how it has to be when you start the club, I guess. That's how almost all but like 5 to 6 people, that's their experience in Ridiculum. It's like, oh, this person was here before me and they've been doing it for longer. Yeah. But that's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I do feel like in the story of Ridiculum, I'm kind of a fun side character. I'm not like.
I think you're a fun side character that graduated to being like main cast. It seems like it, at least from my perspective. But that's also my perspective, which is a totally different one than you.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe main cast.
Just vice president means. Gotta mean make main cast. Man.
Again, I had the title of vice president.
Hey man, I had like titles, especially in Ridiculum Exec, where like we exchange duties all the time. It doesn't mean anything that I'm the president, really. Because I lead practices with like 4 other people, and they do the exact same thing that I do. Yeah, it's just a title.
It's a group of friends getting stuff done.
It really is. The title doesn't mean anything.
That said, if I ever have it on a resume, I will be putting VP and acting as though, I was the second.
It is. You know what? On a resume, if someone cares or gives a shit about the fact you're in a comedy club, anything like VP or president, people are like, oh, interesting. You had a leadership role.
Wow.
Very interesting. And you had that for a while? No, I got it the second to last year I was there. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't have it the next year. But I was vice president. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That was a long-winded way of me saying thanks, Frank, for being in the club.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank everyone else for having me.
Thank you to our live studio audience. We appreciate it. You've been very silent the whole time. We've been cracking jokes, and no one has said anything. Yeah. I'm looking at you, Hat. Mm-hmm. Guy in the hat.
You could throw a laugh track in here.
We could throw something. Yeah. Would it be funnier if I didn't, though? Yeah. Well, thank you so much to our live studio audience and Frank for being here. Yeah, I love talking about this. Who knows, man? You might come back on the show.
I'd love to. Yeah. I'd love to do this for another. I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, sure.
Subtract 5 from that.
Okay.
So it's not that bad.
Yeah. Have we been making good time? Have we been efficiently going through the stuff you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think so. That was I come into this podcast with the plan of I just need to talk about their comedy journey, and then the questions are for if we don't fill that time. Okay. And so that's all I'm prioritizing. Okay. Which I'm excited about.
Yeah. If you have a sense, this has just been a conversation for me. I don't know if you have a sense of all the things you wanted to hit or.
No, I didn't, and I will never have a sense of what I need to hit. I come into this podcast as I do every improv scene, unprepared and ready for shit to happen. Yeah. But that was great. Frank, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Oh, thank you again for having me.
Of course, man. It was super fun. I love having you on the show. I want to say thanks again to the I forgot how to. I want to say thank you. I want to thank Andrew Mister for the use of this podcast theme song, Cruisin'. Thank you again to Frank. And my name is Jacob Marscola, reminding you to laugh, especially when it's funny.